You know, I love the health message. I love the truths that God has been giving to us, sharing with us, and I love all things about herbs. I really do. And that's what I'm going to share with you this morning. And I spoke to you last night about my desire of being able to teach people how to regain their health without it being expensive. Now, I understand and I know for years and years now that I have been using and I utilise herbs. I utilise barley green and dried herbs and dried powders. They are basically my supplements. I'm getting my minerals from them. I don't really get many supplements. It's mainly the herbs. I've been doing them for many, many years because I believe this is what we really need. So I'm going to take you for a walk this morning through our garden. This is what I do each time, and I'm going to tell you at the end what happens. Okay, well, just before I started, I want to share with you a few little things. Now, you know, God has got... Have you ever heard of the doctrine of signatures? The doctrine of signatures is something that happens that God has placed in nature clues to how we should use certain foods and herbs. Okay, the clues are maybe the colour, the shape. Now, you look, what is a cut slice of a carrot look like? Human eye. And guess what it's good for? Okay, what about grapes? They hang in a cluster. What are they good for? Blood. They look like blood cells. A walnut. What are walnuts good for? They're good brain food. Oranges, grapefruits and other citrus are like the mammary glands. They actually assist the health of the breasts and the movement of lymph in and out of the breasts. Celery, bok choy, rhubarb and many more look just like bones. What are they good for? Bones. Avocados, eggplant and pears target the health and function of the womb and cervix of the female. Figs are full of seeds and hang in twos when they grow. Figs increase the mobility of male sperm, and as they increase, the numbers of sperm as well as to overcome male sterility. A tomato has 4 chambers and is red. The heart has 4 chambers and is red. Tomatoes are loaded with lycopene and are indeed pure heart and blood food. Olives assist the health and function of the ovaries. So could you see, isn't God wonderful? Placing clues for us to know how to use these foods. Sweet potatoes look like the pancreas and actually balance the glycemic index of diabetics. Kidney beans actually heal and maintain the kidney function. And onions look like the body cells. They help clear waste materials from the body cells and even produce tears, which wash the epithelial layers of the eyes. A working companion, garlic, also helps eliminate wastes. So we got clues in God's kingdom. Now, before we start, we're going to go for a walking through my garden. But what I want to share with you at the beginning is the fact that you must use herbs wisely. Don't just go and pick and add herbs. What I'm going to hopefully inspire you to use herbs, but you shouldn't just go in and just pick anything and everything if you do not know what you're using. You must be sensible with herbs. You must realise, and if you're on medication, there could be a contraindication with your medication. You must understand that before you start. I use all these things safely because I'm not on any medication, but use your herbs wisely and just don't go into them just carelessly and just add them and just think, oh, this is good for me. You can get yourself into a bit of predicament if you are, especially if you're on medication or you're taking too many or you don't know what you're using. I have a friend who actually decided they would have some dandelion, and they added dandelion and they got so sick because they didn't actually put dandelion. They used something else which they thought was dandelion. Okay, so what I'm saying is you must know your herbs, okay, before you add them. And if you only know 3 herbs, use just those 3. Don't go experimenting with other herbs until you're told for sure and you know what they are and what they do. Just be careful with them. Now, I'm saying this is collecting and using wild, edible green weeds and plants. And we call it God's pharmacy. Okay, now our first walk down the side of my garden are violets. Okay, what do you use violets for other than just they grow everywhere in a garden? Ours just come up all over the place and we never planted them. They just come from next door. Next door's garden. So what do you use violets for? Well, violet leaves, flowers and roots are edible. They're good for headaches, digestive disorders, respiratory ailments, for cancer, AIDS, arthritis, gum disease. They expel parasites. You can use them for malignant growths and they're anti-inflammatory. So you can use your violets. Now, by the way, when I'm going out, just imagine yourself, here I've got a bowl in my hand and I'm going to pick a few leaves every day that I'm walking through my garden. And at the end, I'm going to show you how I use those. Now, I don't pick many. I will pick maybe, now there's 2 of us only in my family at home at the moment. So I'll go through there, pick through, and I maybe pick 3 or 4 leaves of violet leaves. And if there's flowers there, sometimes there's some parts of the year they don't flower, but if there's flowers there, I will pick the flowers as well. So I'll put them in my bowl. Then I'll go down a little bit further, and what do you think I found? A strawberry plant. Did you know that strawberry leaves are excellent? I'm not talking about using the strawberries, I'm talking about using the leaves. What do we use strawberry leaves for? They are tonic to the kidneys, liver, spleen, bladder, blood, as well as infections. They cleanse the stomach. They're an eczema remedy. You use them for diarrhea, dysentery, gout, rheumatism, anemia, sore throat, poor circulation, night sweats, nervousness, weakness, congested mucous membranes, jaundice, and they are similar to raspberry for all women's uses. Strawberry leaves are an excellent blood cleanser. Just remember them, very powerful. And so I've collected there. And usually they come in leaves, and I just maybe pick 1 or 2 leaves, depends how many I feel like, each morning. And by the way, some of these are seasonal. I don't always have them all year through, but this was photographed as I just walked through my garden. It was in the summertime. So this is what I was using. Okay, so what do I use next? And this is something else. If you've got it in your garden, you've got it in your garden. You never seem to get rid of it. Comes up everywhere, and it's everywhere because the birds take it. All of a sudden I had it there, now it's over there, and it's over there, and it's over there. Actually, I have a husband who is a very neat person and he loves gardening, and he's a gardener, and I've actually got him to the stage where I actually say, do not weed that garden. That's my herbal garden. And he doesn't. He tidies it up. He keeps it all within the borders. But within it, it's just all weeds and all things. So that's what a lot of my garden, although we've got some raised beds for our vegetables. But this is what we've got here. So this is my mint. Now, there are 20 different varieties of mint. It relieves colic, indigestion, diarrhea, vomiting, nausea, vomiting, diarrhea, muscle spasms, menstrual cramps, headaches, colds, fever, halitosis, heartburn, sore throat, travel sickness, nervous conditions, insomnia, ulcerative colitis, and insomnia. Okay, so then I keep walking down my garden, and guess what I find? Okay, and I'm not using the figs, even though this was photographed with figs on there. I'm picking the fig leaves. Who uses fig leaves? I use fig leaves. Okay, so what I'm using, and by the way, I don't use those tough old big fig leaves. I tend to go for those tender, more fresher, newer leaves, but I put a fig leaf in my drink. Okay? And I'm not using huge amounts. I'm using maybe one a day. I'll just go and pick one fig leaf. So fig leaves are best known for treating diabetes, but there are other uses for fig leaves. The diabetic will need less insulin when on treatment using the fig leaf. Diabetes, it lowers blood sugar, it lowers triglycerides, lowers blood pressure, increases bone density, and is good for bronchitis. Okay, so what is this? This is my peach tree. And we did have peaches on. We have them on. Obviously, as I said, you don't have these all year around. They are dormant in the winter. But when they come on, I will always pick the nice, fresh ones that are coming out. Good for nerves, are a laxative. Whooping cough, very good for coughs. Dyspepsia, stomach troubles, jaundice, inflammation of the bladder, and will expel worms. Excellent for bladder and uterine troubles such as scalding urine. Do you know all of these? You find this. You go to old herbal books, especially the old European herbal books. I have one lady who comes to my class and she loves this, and she tells me all of these stories, how she used to use these different. She remember her telling me a story about peach leaves, how she cured all her family of bronchitis using just peach leaf tea. And who thinks to dry their peach leaves and make tea out of it? But you can do it. Okay, so our next one. You may not know what this one is, but this is yarrow. Okay, so I'll just go and I'll pull off a few of these. Often I don't take the stalky bits. I just take the leaf bit and I'll just pull off some of those little fronds, the little soft fronds, and it breaks fevers by inducing perspiration. It stimulates circulatory and digestive systems. It removes congestion, cleans blood, eases heavy menstrual bleeding and cramps, can be used for many other ailments. So I've got my bowl and I'll just pick a few little bits of yarrow in there. Not a great deal, but then I'll move on. Not quite. Looks a lot like it, but it's fennel. Okay, it builds strength and endurance and stimulates the metabolism, calms nerves, activates digestive system and regulates intestinal flora, lowers blood pressure. The seeds can be used as well, and you chew your seeds to depress hunger pangs. So we use fennel. So I've just got a few of those. Now this one you may not know. I bought this from a place. I didn't have it in my garden, but it is salad bonnet. It stops bleeding internally and externally. And by the way, too, as I've grown in my knowledge of herbs, I actually grow, I buy some of my herbs, and I'll just add this while I think of it. The point of having these wild edibles against vegetables, your vegetable root system only goes down so far in the ground. But when you have your wild edibles, they have a very deep root system in the ground. You try to get rid of some of these, and did you know they are down, way, way, way down in the ground? So what we're talking about, did you know alfalfa, they say they're down in the ground. They found the root system 120 feet down. So that's 30 metres or so, 30-something metres down in the ground? So we're having if we want to have good health, we must have, now there are apparently 7 different layers of root system out in nature. So if we have foods that are bringing up trace minerals from each different root system, we're going to have a balanced health. But too many of us are just using the top layer or 1 or 2 layers. We're not getting deep down into the root system. So sometimes we need to have leaves, we need to have grasses, but some of those roots go very deep, and what they're doing, they're bringing up trace minerals into the plant. So that's why we're getting them if they're in the ground. You really don't want to have these in pots, but if you only have pots, it's better than nothing. So remember, get a variety of plants that have different root systems. That's the idea, to bring them up from way down deep in the ground. Okay, going on with the salad burnet, strengthens heart, liver, lungs, kidneys and nervous system. It purifies the blood, relieves indigestion, has disinfectant and antiseptic properties, and you can use it on sores, wounds, bites, ulcers, sunburn and skin conditions. And like most of these, a lot of these I am sure, and I haven't used all of them, but a lot of them I'm sure you could use them as poultices as well. You will find that they will, and some of them you might be surprised how they can react and can heal a lot of conditions. Now this you should know, because this is out of my garden, my veggie garden. It's just normal old parsley. So I go and I pick a sprig of this, not a huge lot, but it's high in chlorophyll, helps oxygen metabolism, cleans blood, dissolves sticky deposits in veins, maintains elasticity of blood vessels, helps remove kidney stones, fights gum and mouth infections, treats urinary infections. So that's with your parsley. Very good for you, remember, very good for urinary infections. Kale. So you know about kale, don't you? So this is going on further in my garden, and I've got my kale. And so it helps fight diabetes, type 1 and type 2, is antioxidant, supports heart health, reduces risk of stroke, binds carcinogens and is good for bone health, promotes healthy digestion and of your skin and hair. So I've got my leaf of kale that I put in my bowl. This is my walk as I'm walking through my garden. As you can see, and you notice it's sort of a bit wild looking. It's not exactly manicured, but it's because carrots. Now what I'm using here is I'm using the tops. I'm not using the root. It is rich in protein, minerals and vitamins. It has many more times vitamin A than the root, and 6 times the vitamin C of the root. So we're using carrot tops. Carrot tops actually, when you put in things, are quite strong, so you don't want to put in too many. They overpower it, and if you put in too many, be very bitter and can give you diarrhea, which sometimes is not a bad idea if you want a good clean out, but more often than not, it can be very overpowering. So you don't want to put too much carrot top in, but it still works. It's a great source of potassium and calcium, and is rich in vitamin K that is essential to bone health. They can be a little bitter, so use them carefully. You can use them for parasites and worms. Now this is most important when we're talking about getting rid of heavy metals and all that sort of thing. You've got to work with the parasites and worms, which most people are not doing. We've got many, I'd say almost everyone, unless you've been on a parasite and worm cleanse, you've definitely got parasites and worms that are causing problem with your health. Chlorophyll, an excellent source of magnesium, promotes healthy blood pressure, strong bones and muscles, and purifies the blood, lymph nodes and adrenal glands. And the potassium lowers your blood pressure, supports your metabolism and helps prevent osteoporosis. They have used to be they also have been noted to deter tumour growth. Okay, beetroot leaves. Okay, beetroot leaves are, you can use them compared to spinach, Swiss chard, quinoa, lamb's quarters and a number of other wild edible greens. I never forget the time when we first thought we'd put some green leaves in our drink. We actually put them in, and we put beetroot leaves in, and we said, oh, do you think we can eat these? And I can remember after we did, both of us felt our blood, surging through our body, and we knew something was happening, and we said, oh, maybe we shouldn't have it. And so I thought, well, I better just make sure that they're okay. And I did, and I had found out since then, obviously, that beetroot leaves are okay. Contains antioxidants, a vitamin K that clots blood, boosts bone strength, fights Alzheimer's, strengthens immune system, and vitamin A fights night blindness. Silver beet. Now this was just one that I was given and I left it in a pot. okay, but it is high in antioxidants. It slows the aging process. It protects heart health. It fights cancer, helps prevent diabetes, maintains bone health, improves digestion, helps maintain healthy brain function, and protects eye health, benefits nerves and muscle. Now, if you've got silver beet, which had there, I usually just take the smaller leaves because you can use your other silver beet for your cooking, but this is specifically for my health drink which we're making. Okay, anybody guess what this one is? Oxalis, that's exactly right. Now, this has got little leaves that are shaped like hearts, and they have a beautiful lemony flavour. Can you believe? Do you know something? We pick a lot of them, not all of these, but if we've got these, we'll put these in with our salad for our meal. So we'll put bits and pieces of what we got going, or we'll cut it up fine. And I tell you what, even if it is a bit bitter, if you put a nice dressing over it, maybe a bit of lemon over it, maybe a bit of lemon and a bit of olive oil and salt, I tell you what, it dresses it up very nicely and it's very palatable. But this by itself is very palatable. You chew it for nausea, mouth sores. The tea is used for urinary infections, fever, colds, cleansing blood, gum disease, reduces swelling and tired feet, but it has oxalic acid in it. It's a little bit like your silver beet. You don't want to use too much of it, but you find that if it's raw, you will get away with it. Now, this is the true calendula. Okay, so I use the calendula. On this one, I actually use the leaf. I don't use the leaves, I use the flower. And I don't use that hard old centre, even though I suppose sometimes I put it in if it's a little one, but normally I'll just pick the petals off. Do you know there's a lot of flowers that you can eat, and they are quite edible? Some tastes terrible. I've got a book at home which has got wild edible leaves and flowers, and like at home we have wattle. And I looked up in my book, and I said, wattle is edible. And so when it was in season, I went out with Peter and we decided, look, let's just taste this. And so I tasted it and I thought, you know what, you'd have to be quite desperate to have to eat this. You would have to be desperate because it tastes terrible. But I found out that you can eat it. Okay, so that's the flower, the wattle flower. But you need to, and I have got quite a number of books on wild edibles, and once you get yourself into it and you take your book with you and you say, oh yes, that, you can use that, and you can identify it on the spot, and you just know you can use, this is something you can use. But you use calendula for antiviral, anti-inflammatory. It's good for acne, it controls bleeding, menstrual cycle, soothes irritated tissues, rashes and sunburn. It's good for radiation pain, abdominal cramps, constipation, anti-tumour, duodenal ulcers, and it's used to heal wounds. Look, these are powerful, and once you start using them, you know that they are powerful. But because I'm only using a small amount each day, I'm not going to get a huge response. I'm just going to get a varied, and hopefully I'm getting a wide spectrum of minerals right throughout the plant kingdom. Now this one, does anyone know what this one is? It's purslane. Purslane, it's like a waxy flower, a waxy leaf. It's got tiny little flowers, little yellow flowers on. And once you've got it, it grows everywhere. But it grows only in the summer. Now, it's a waxy leaf with brown stems, has lemony flavour. It is the richest source of omega-3 in the plant kingdom. If you have, and this is a weed, we often slice it up and put it in our salad. So you need to be eating your purslane. It is such, and people don't know, they're walking by these things out there and they don't know there is such nourishing food at their feet, yet they're going to the supermarket and buying, like lettuce that's white and stale and all that sort of thing, which has got virtually very little nutrition in, yet you've got this purslane that's growing at your feet, and it's the highest. How many people are so low in omega-3? We need omega-3s. That's brain food for us. And once we get that into our diet, it's going to make things, your health will improve. Okay, it contains vitamin C, it increases milk supply in nursing mothers. It's good for allergies, thyroid, adrenals, pituitary, and entire endocrine system, plus much more. Look, when I did the research of this, it was endless. I could have a whole list, that'd fill your screen up. But you can use it for so many things. Now, this one, maybe you don't know what this is. This is called mullein. Now, this mullein grows about so tall. Okay, and up the middle of it, it's got this big stalk with these flowers in it. Now, by the way, if you get the flowers and you pick the flowers off and you soak the flowers in oil, you can use that oil for hearing problems. Okay, so that's good for your hearing. Okay, but mullein, they actually call it poor man's toilet paper. The leaves are huge and they are soft and pliable, very soft and nice. Okay, they use it for respiratory, and I've picked mullein, and what I do when I've got a whole lot and I find a big crop of mullein, I will go and pick a whole lot of it, and I will take it home and I will dehydrate it because I have a dehydrator. Sometimes I never used to, and I just lay it out on all my spare beds. And I would let them dry out. I'd put a sheet down and I'd lay all the leaves out loose over them separately and let them dry out. They'd take probably about 2 or 3 weeks. But, I find it is easier in a dehydrator because you get them all done and you can pack it all away. But I found, and when I've used mullein tea, and if I've ever had a bronchial cough, which I had some years back, I would just take 1 drink of mullein tea and all of a sudden it looses your congestion. Just like that. Okay, it's a valuable painkiller and nerve iron. It helps calm and relieve irritated nerves. It is the only herb known that has narcotic properties without being poisonous and harmful. And it soothes and strengthens the bowels and glandular system. But because I got some mullein seeds and I have added them to my garden, I've got mullein coming up nearly, I can see them coming up in different places. Now, I don't pick that huge leaf to put in my drink. I just pick the little one. There might be a smaller one. I've got a smaller plant there. But I can remember we had all of them. They were growing up in the back. We had them down beside the shed, and they grew up nice and tall. And then when I tipped them upside down to get the seed out of it, there were like thousands and thousands of these tiny little black seeds, just like poppy seeds. You tip them upside down, and then I've got this whole big lot of seeds. And you can even just eat those seeds and add them to your food. They're fine too. You've got a lot of nourishment in your seeds. Okay, when we've got marjoram, this soothes digesting system, dyspepsia, colic, gastritis, abdominal cramps, nervous upsets, vomiting and seasickness. It assists sleep, increases the flow of bile, clears toxins and increases your white blood cell count, plus more. This next one, you may know someone who heard, yes, it's cleavers. Now, cleavers is a very sticky weed, okay? And when you go out in your garden, it's like it sort of grows and it sticks to everything. If you walk through cleavers, you'll end up with it all over you. Very sticky. But do you know what you use cleavers for? Oh, I've lost the notes on it. I don't know why that's happened, but cleavers is used for urinary tract infections. That's its primary use. So if you want to get some, if you want to help your urinary tract, you make a tea of cleavers. I'm not sure why those words are. Yes, that's what you use. You just pull the leaves. I generally more so use the leaves than the stalks, but I throw a few of those in as well. Now this one here, we call it marshmallow. It is a mucilaginous type of herb. Clears mucus and toxins from your body. You can actually poultice with mullen leaves, with marshmallow leaves, I beg your pardon, too. That is excellent too. You can make teas with it. My husband said that when he was a young boy, when he was living in Germany, his grandmother was a backyard herbalist, but she just knew so much about it. They would go out and pick a lot of the wild. He remembers that he had boils once, and she went out and picked chamomile in the wild, and they had these armloads of chamomile, and they just threw them in a bathtub with hot water, and he sat in this bathtub, and he said it just pulled all the toxins out of those boils. He said he could lie in the bathtub. He said he would see them pop, and the pus would be drawing out into the bath water just by sitting in a bathtub full of these herbs. Now, I've heard the same is with marshmallow with somebody with gangrene. They just sat in there and they got their circulation back with gangrene. So you can do lots and lots of things. I'm not sure where I'm up to. Used for sore throats, coughs, cold, laryngitis, bronchitis, tight chests, sinusitis, emphysema, tonsillitis, asthma, catarrh, whooping cough, plus more. So you can use and you'll find marshmallow is an ingredient in a lot of the natural cough remedies. So it's great. Now, do you know what this one is? That is dandelion. Now you see at the side of it, dandelion is one of those herbs that not everybody knows and can identify clearly what dandelion is. With dandelion, you must understand dandelions and some of the other plants look similar when they're little. But when you've got a dandelion, you've got one stalk with one flower. They all come out of the same rosette down the bottom, but they've got one stalk, one flower. When you cut that stalk, you can see on the right that it's completely hollow. It's like a straw. That is true dandelion, right? Now, I've got a picture of something here beside it. They are not dandelions. But yet I was told as a child that the one on the left was dandelion, but it's not. It's capeweed. It's not dandelion. Now, in my mind, I always used to think, oh, that's dandelion, but it's not. And then the other one up there is cat's ear. Now, cat's ear looks very similar to dandelion when it's little. As it gets older, you can see the hairs come on the leaves, but as it's baby, it looks very similar. But with cat's ear, you've got one stalk, and out the side of the stalk, you've got some branches coming out of that flower head. And that is not dandelion. Don't use that one, right? That's why I put that in there. You need to know, especially if you're using dandelion, or even if at the beginning, buy yourself a dandelion plant so you know what dandelion is, and it'll start coming up all over your garden. But dandelion is a safe plant diuretic. It alkalizes body, reduces excess acidity. It is bitter and it stimulates digestion. And that's what dandelion does. It is a bitter herb. But can I tell you, most people are not eating enough bitter herbs in their diet. So you just go and pick a few dandelions out of your garden, and it will start to alkalize your body and reduce excess acidity. It is bitter, and it stimulates your digestion, assists your liver, your spleen, your gall and pancreas function, and makes it easier to digest fats and oils. It stimulates mucous membranes, soothes digestive tract, absorbs toxins from the bowel, and helps friendly flora to thrive and inhibit unfriendly bacteria. It relieves diabetes, dissolves gallstones, plus much more. So you really need to get into dandelion. And I can remember going somewhere right at the beginning, and my friend, she had dandelion. She said, take my plants. So I got it and I introduced it into my garden because I didn't have dandelion coming up everywhere, but now it does. There, Yeah. Okay, this next one, this comes up only times of the year, certain times of the year. It's stinging nettle. Stinging nettle is an effective remedy for pain relief. It creates warmth. It's good for arthritis, gout, lumbago, paralysis, kidneys, anemia, adrenals, liver, prostate problems, candida. It's the best blood cleansing and blood building herb known. One of the richest sources of chlorophyll in the plant kingdom, and it can be used as food. A lot of the Europeans during the war used stinging nettle and it kept them alive. But it is very, very prickly. So if you want to eat stinging nettle, how do you get it? And you want to eat it raw, how do you get rid of the prickles? Well, you put it on a breadboard and you get a rolling pin and you just roll over your rolling pin over it and it takes all of the prickles out. So that's how you use it. And then you could slice it up and throw it in your greens. Or you could even maybe whiz it up in a blender or a food processor and make it into a pesto or something like that. Okay, but you need to use stinging nettle. Stinging nettle, remember, very, very good for women with anemia when they have a heavy blood loss. But it's also good for men. Men for urinary problems need to get onto stinging nettle tea. That's another one with saw palmetto. Stinging nettle and saw palmetto will reduce any problems with your prostate. So if you get onto those herbs. Okay, now this is the next one. You've got some here. I saw some over in the ground. Plantain. It's like long ribs in it. It is excellent. You use it for all bleeding. It is the allantoin which helps cells knit back together, stimulates growth and healing. It is an anti-inflammatory. It's used for arthritis, high blood pressure and cholesterol, candida, stomach upsets, ulcers, psoriasis, ringworm, diarrhea, ringworm bites, addictions, bedwetting and bladder problems, blood poisoning, constipation, used for herpes, and you go on. Blood cleanser, malignant growth, cancer, thrombosis, liver, spleen, pain, hemorrhoids, lumbago, menopause, boils, tones, uterine muscle cramps, fever, varicose veins, diabetes, irritable bowel, diverticulitis, hepatitis, lymph and glands, and virility. See how wonderful and powerful it is? And you've got it in your garden, it'll start coming everywhere. And the roots go down deep. They go down very deep. So you're getting really good minerals being brought up to the surface from the plantain. And you know what? I can remember I visited a lady who was staying with somebody when she was recovering from a heavy menstrual loss, and she knew she'd been in hospital and she knew she had to get her blood up, and there was a big patch of wild plantain growing out the back. So her and her family used to go out and pick this up, and they would eat this as their lettuce every single day, and they would slice it up. And even the boys, and these boys at that stage were one was maybe about 12 and one was about 14, and they loved it. They were quite, and usually kids when they're that age, they get a little bit fussy, but no, they were quite happy with it. And the secret to having all this, I think, is just to having a little bit of, just a touch of lemon over it, because it just gives it a bit of a lift, like a dressing or something like that, because it can be pretty ordinary just by itself because it's quite strong. But plantain have these long stalks and they have heads at the end of the stalks, and what I do is I pull off those seeds, and that is from the same family of your psyllium family, and you can throw them in anything that you want to, and it's psyllium, and it's just you've collected your own. Can you see how healthy it is? So I pull all those, and sometimes I can't be bothered pulling it off. I'll just cut off the stalk and I'll throw it in my drink. Yep.
What do you call it?
That was plantain. That was the stalks of plantain. That was when it went to seed.
I thought it was weed.
It is weed.
Oh, yeah.
It is weed. They're all weeds. Okay, now this here is yellow dock. You use it for jaundice, liver, congestion, gallbladder complaints, scurvy, inflamed glands. It thins and purifies the blood. As a tonic, dock is very high in iron, removes excess fluid from the body, indigestion, fatigue, biliousness, itchy skin, excellent for lymphatic system and for treating cancer. So with this one, we went out in the wild. For myself, I actually had a heavy blood loss quite some years ago, and I'd gone out previously when I was doing this herb course, Peter and I went out and got a whole lot of yellow dock. Now, yellow dock has a root, and this plant was huge, and we picked this root, and it was shaped like a carrot. It would have been about that long. And we got it, and we washed it off, and we said, well, what do we do with it? And how do you cut it up? So Peter got the axe on it to chop it all up, and we cut it up, and I had it in bits and pieces, and not long after that, I had this blood problem, this hemorrhaging. And I went and I got that, and I put it into a pot. I put the whole lot into the pot, covered it with water, and I boiled it up because I was taught that it's the richest source of iron in the plant kingdom. And I made this tea up of it. It was like black. And I was at the doctor, and it was a the Thursday before Easter, and I had a blood test. Then I went back to the Tuesday after Easter, and I was drinking this stuff, and it was very, very strong and very black and dark, but I finished that whole pot off. I finished off 2 bottles, one bottle, I think 1 and a bit bottles of liquid chlorophyll, plus I had pure grape juice, and I went back to the doctor and had another blood test, and he says, what have you done? He says, I can't believe your blood. And I said, well, I've been working hard on it. I won't tell you what happened then. But anyhow, that's yellow dock. The story is excellent. See, these things, you need to get this information. Start doing it. Don't put it in storage and ring me up then 2 years long down the track and say, okay, what do I use yellow dock for? You've got to start learning about this and utilising this information yourself. Yes, too. Okay, this here is sheep sorrel. I better keep going on because I'm going to run out of time, Peter. Cleanses blood, expels worms, warming to the heart, rich in vitamin C, reduces swelling, inflammation of the nasal passages, sinusitis and bronchitis. Sheep sorrel is an essential in Essiac, a cancer remedy. Now, we actually have also French sorrel at home. French sorrel grows with a leaf that's bigger, and I thought I put a photo in it because I went out and took a photo, but I put it in some other file here and I can't find where I've put it. But anyhow, French sorrel is very similar to sheep sorrel, but it works the same. And we just cut off leaves of that and slice that into our greens every day. And I utilise a lot of sprouts. I'm growing sprouts all the time, so that's what I'm putting in my sprouts, in my salad every day. And we don't have huge amounts. It's not like we're buying. We'll go out maybe pick 2 or 3 leaves for a day, and that's it. But we have a few other bits and pieces cut up in there. Do you know what this is? You need this in your garden, everyone. Get loads of it in your garden. You're going to be helping lots of people. I could tell you loads of story about comfrey, but I can't. It assists the body to heal any part that has been torn or broken, like it's called knit bone. It contains allantoin, stimulates rapid growth. It is a blood purifier. It's used for bones and flesh builder, stimulates production of cartilage, tendons and muscles, used for indigestion, stomach and bowel problems, excessive menstrual flow, fevers, coughs, lungs conditions, hemorrhaging, cancer, catarrh, anemia, sinusitis, lupus, lowers blood pressure, hiatus hernia, eases inflammation of the joints and mucous membranes. We need comfrey. I could tell you loads of stories about comfrey and the healing properties of comfrey, but I haven't got time. Yeah, and I tell you what, comfrey, you cannot cut off that. You've got to, if you want to get rid of it out of your garden, you've got to dig up the roots. You know, the roots of bitterness that we have, comfrey is a typical plant to just know that if you just cut off the tops, guess what? It's going to shoot up again. You've got to get rid of every piece of root, because just a small piece of root will allow the whole plant to reshoot. Okay, now there's aloe vera. There's different sorts of aloe vera. There is a barbadensis. There's this one here is a candelabra. Then there's a barbadensis. And then there's a perii. But the barbadensis and the candelabra are the best aloe veras to use. We need aloe vera. And I'm putting a little bit of aloe vera in my green drink every day, or when I'm using it, okay? Helps digestion, and it makes your drink very bitter, because I'm not taking out that yellow part around the edge which makes it bitter. It helps digestion, acid, reflux, irritable bowel, Crohn's, is antiseptic, has healing powers, is anti-inflammatory, penetrates deeply, used on burns, stops bleeding, ulcers, increases oxygen and blood to area, antiviral, antibacterial, good for cancer, leukemia, HIV, heals stomach and colon, diabetes, asthma, angina, blood sugar, cholesterol, bladder infections, plus lots more. So we use aloe vera, and you need to use it. It's excellent. Now, I noticed that they've got some here in this grounds. It's over near the slide, the slippery slide over there. It is Herb Robert. It is the supreme. You need this in your garden. And if you get a few of those seeds, it'll grow. It'll grow everywhere. It comes up everywhere. It is one of the best herbs it will reoxygenate your whole body. It is a supreme therapeutic herb. You need it to make oxygen available to cells, excellent for cancer, stimulates kidneys to reject and eliminate toxins, stimulates electrical impulses to cells, gives energy, builds immune system, is antibiotic, antiviral, antioxidant, it builds hemoglobin, it's good for mouth ulcers, colitis, chronic fatigue, men's fractures plus bleeding, stops bleeding plus more. So you've got these, and you need to utilise it, and it is excellent. I can't help say, we cut a little bit of this up in Peter's in charge of going out and getting the greens for our salads every day, and we just get them as we're going to eat them, because he's home at lunchtime, so but if he's not, I would cut it up early in the morning, but we just have the fact that we can go out, just before lunch, and we just pick them straight out of the garden. Now this one here is radium weed. Do not eat it. It looks good, but you use this one for burning off skin cancers. And this one has a milky sap when you cut it open. Actually, the last photo there, here down in the bottom right-hand corner, there's a little bit of a picture where I've got a little bit of a milky sap coming out of it. That sap is what you dab on, and you can burn off your skin cancers. So here I am. I've collected all these bits and pieces in my bowl. I can see them all scrunched up. I just got a little bowl, my bowl's quite large, so I've got these little bit of herbs in the bottom of there. Now, sometimes what I've done here, I've just got this one for myself. I grab you don't have to do this, but I've got frozen fruit in my freezer from my own peach tree. I've got, they're not guavas, they come over the tree. I've just lost the name of the fruit. They're coming out, no, they're not plums. No, I've just, no, they're a fruit, okay? And the neighbour has them, and they drop over into our garden, and I pick them up because they're very, very nice. And I freeze them, and I just throw them in my blender. I've got a strong blender, a very good blender. I pack all my ingredients in there with the little bit of fruit. Now, you don't have to have the fruit. I choose not to use a sweet fruit because I want to get rid of my sweet tooth. I've eaten too many sweets all my life. My body needs to be bitter. I need that. I need to teach myself. So I just drink this, and it tastes shocking. Do not think it is a nice drink. It tastes terrible. Okay, and you drink it, and there it is. You could, but why do you want to? Yes, if you wanted to, but I'm just telling you, you don't need to. You don't need to. Look, if you wanted to, of course you could. You could put an apple, a bit of apple or a bit of banana or something like that. But you know something, that's defeating the purpose. You know, we need bitter in our bodies to stimulate our healing. And too many of us are too soft. We have acquired this taste that we like these nice, sweet things. We've got to get rid of that taste, and I believe this is the way we do it. We have to start, and this is what I do. Now that is one way, and actually I thought of another way you can do it, and I drink the whole lot of that with all those leaves and grasses in there, and that is blended up quite smooth, all right? But another way that I've done it is I've done the same thing and I've just put pure water in there, a little bit more water, then I will tip it out and strain that and just drink the liquid, green, liquidy water. Now that tastes still terrible, but it's an easier way to go. You maybe don't want the fibre in there. I had to laugh because we had a friend who I was introducing to, he was so arthritic, and I said, you've got to take green barley. So I gave him a bag of barley green, you know, powder that he put it in there, and he came back and he told me it tasted like Hessian bags. And it does, it tastes pretty, but you know, once you get used to this, do you know something? I don't screw up a face every time I drink this now. I'm quite used to it now. I'm quite... Okay, you do acquire a taste for it. I don't think you ever really love it, but you acquire a taste for it that you can drink it without screwing up your face totally. And you just know, because I know it's so good for you. It is so healthy for you. And so what you can do, you need, and this is my last slide. What you need to do is introduce greens into your diet. Our bodies need greens. Remember, where do you get magnesium from? You get it from your greens. You really need greens in your diet. And how much greens are most people getting? Virtually none. Virtually none. And if they have, they will have a few little bits of... maybe a bit of salad in lettuce, and that's not enough. Our bodies are starving for this, and we have to rebuild it up into our bodies, in our thing. And I just believe that I often am thankful, and I don't take it for granted, but I have been doing this for many, many years, and I believe that that's why both myself and my husband Peter are in reasonable health. Because we have been doing this, and most people, and believe me, when you're getting to be our ages, this is where it all catches up on you. If you've done things wrong, you can generally get away with it when you're in your 20s and 30s and 40s. 50s, maybe 60s, but when you're in your 70s, you've just got to start thinking, well, Lord. No, hope not. Okay, thank you so much for that. Okay, we will just finish now and we'll have prayer. Thank you, Heavenly Father. You are indeed a loving God. You've given us so much. You've given us an abundance of herbs in the field, of grasses that we can use. And Lord, we realise that we haven't used these to their fullest advantage. We're so thankful how you love us and you've given us this information. So, Lord, we just pray now that you'd inspire us to want to use them, to introduce them into our life, to share this knowledge with others. And, Lord, we just pray now for your continued guidance and protection. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen. So is there any more questions?